Hello divers and welcome to the Dive Podcast. My name's Paul Critcher and I present this regular dip into the oceans in which we talk all things diving. In this episode we have interviews with two contributors from the autumn issue of Dive. First up is artist and conservationist Francesca Page, who tells us how she's been painting up a storm in Cocos. Francesca, on your website there is a mission statement which reads as follows. Every 60 seconds, on average 200 sharks are lost from our oceans due to human impact. My mission for 200 Sharks project is to raise awareness about the incredible and venerable species before it is too late. Tell us about that ambition and about what the 200 Sharks project is.
Yes, so I started the 200 Sharks project about 2 years ago. And at first, my mission was to paint 200 sharks. And that still is my mission, but recently I have kind of relaunched the project where now my mission is to paint 200 species of shark, but I want to also dive with 200 species as well. This is because I realized, especially from this year, from diving a lot with sharks in the past 6 months, to truly sort of communicate or paint the sharks, diving with them is really important. When you dive with them, you are able to really see how beautiful they are, the way they move in the water, the way the light hits their skin, and also things like, for example, the blue shark. It's only when I dove with them that I realized how blue their skin was and also iridescent their skin was. And so, yeah, I've changed the project. So now I'm diving with 200 different types of sharks. And I'm hoping sort of the outcome of the project that I'll have an archive of photographs, stories, and paintings to be able to share with people and hopefully cut the stigma that is on sharks at the moment. I want to illustrate that sharks are not mindless killers, but complex, intelligent beings, and they're more than just a set of jaws that we're so used to seeing on the internet and through films. So yeah, that's the 200 Sharks project.
Brilliant, thank you. So let's go back to the beginning. What came first for you, art or diving?
Art came first, definitely for me. Actually, a funny story, I had a phobia of water up to the age of about 12. I used to love going to the beach, but the idea of ever getting in the water was something that was very alien to me. So it was when I was about 13, I learnt to scuba dive at a local school club where I'm from in Surrey in England. And at first it was just a way for me to try and overcome my fear of water, but in that process I fell completely in love with scuba diving. And when I was about 14, 15, I dove for the first time in the ocean in Malta, and even though I saw groupers and cucumbers, I fell completely in love with the underwater world, and I guess that's where my journey started. And that's where I started definitely painting the ocean. But before that, my mum's an artist, so from a very early age, I was really encouraged to paint and draw the surroundings around me. So, yeah, I think it was a natural thing for me to fall in love with the ocean, and I already loved art. So, especially around the age of 17, 18, I became quite obsessed with painting sharks and painting anything that the ocean is. So, yeah, that's kind of my story.
And how would you describe your artistic style, if you will?
I guess before it used to be very realistic, but now I try and communicate or illustrate a story. I definitely class myself as an illustrator, and I studied illustration, and for me illustration is storytelling. So I like to think that my work tells a story and communicates a message. My work is quite realistic, but also has an element of playfulness to it. I try and enjoy the brushstrokes and the little mistakes that are made, and I try to think that my work has a lot of character to it. Yeah.
And you talked about your interest in diving the oceans, and you trained to be a diver. So what level of a diver are you now? And maybe you could pick out some of your diving highlights, if you don't mind. I know there's lots of them.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yes, I'm an instructor. About a year ago, I became an instructor, and I worked as a dive master for a little bit. And that really helped me become a better diver, especially when I became an instructor and having to, you're in charge of people's lives effectively, and it really, really helped me. And in terms of my favorite diving moments, I think blue sharks in Azores and oh gosh, there's a lot. That was a really magical moment because it was the first time that it was about a year ago actually now, but it was the first time I had a proper interaction with a shark. I dove with sharks prior, but it was the first time where they were playing with us and they were in the water with us for about 3 hours. We were free diving. And I remember just popping up and the sun was setting and you see the volcano in the background and you put your head underwater and you've got 3 big blue male sharks swimming around you. And that was really amazing. And probably mantas in Komodo at Manta Point. That was the first time where I saw lots of mantas at once, especially the black mantas, which I've been really wanting to see. And it's just incredible watching them dance in the rays of sunlight. And also, I think, Cocos Island, seeing the hammerheads was pretty amazing. They're very shy and timid creatures, but there was a few pretty awesome encounters there. I'm just trying to think of other ones.
No, that's great. Well, you mentioned Cocos, which of course is what's being featured in this issue of Dive, and some of the amazing aggregations of sharks that you find there. Can you tell us a bit more about that trip, how it was trying to capture those images or realise what you saw underwater onto a canvas?
Yeah, it was very overwhelming at first. It's an incredibly wild place, probably the wildest place I've ever been to. From the island, which is untouched by man, to the crazy waters where it was very challenging diving, and I kind of wasn't quite aware. I knew it was going to be challenging prior, but it was only when I got there that I realised, like, wow, your massive surges of 3 to 5 meters and crazy currents. So it's exciting diving, and sometimes the visibility isn't as great, but there's still so much life there. And there was one dive where the visibility wasn't that great, and suddenly 2 tiger sharks come out of nowhere and start circling us and using that visibility to their advantage. Yeah. So when you dive in Cocos, it is magical, but you never know what you're going to see, and I think that's quite exciting. And every dive usually is situated between 25 to 30 meters at sort of cleaning stations, and you usually dive down and wedge yourself in between some rocks, and you kind of just have to sit there and wait for sort of the show to begin. And sometimes 5-10 minutes pass, and then suddenly you'll just see, a beautiful school of hammerheads go by, and then all the barber fish and the king angel fish come out to start cleaning them, and it's a magical world. And you never know what you're going to see. I remember there was one dive, and in the background we're hearing loads of dolphins, and I was just like praying and hoping they would come close, but they didn't. And there's just sharks everywhere. I mean, if you're a shark lover, Cocos Islands is definitely the place for you. And also if you like challenging diving as well. But translating that to canvas, at first I found quite hard just because there's so much to communicate. And also I really wanted to communicate it in the right way because it's such a magical and wild place. I wanted to be able to showcase that. So I took lots of photos and videos whilst I was there that really helped my work. And I also every day in my logbook wrote very descriptive stories about each dive. So yeah, and I think I communicated it well. I'm still like wanting to paint so many things. I mean, I really want to paint some beautiful eagle rays, and there's still like what else? Galapagos sharks and sailfish, and just so many beautiful things.
Thank you. That's great. And the other thing you've been involved with is Project Hayu, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, with Madison Stewart. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it's a really amazing project that she's created. She's bringing in ecotourism to a local village that they basically 90% of the people who live there make their income from fishing sharks. And she's come in and she's trying to bring ecotourism and show them another way of making money, and actually show them that they can make more money from keeping these sharks alive than to killing them. And it was really amazing going to Indonesia earlier this year and spending time with Maddie, and also meeting the fishermen, meeting the community and their family. It was quite an emotional experience, and also very eye-opening to me, because I realized we point our fingers very easily at the wrong people, and these people are the poorest people in society, and it's not their fault. They're just trying to make a living. And actually, if you give them another job, they'll do it. So it's not like they want to go fish for two weeks in illegal waters that are potentially dangerous. And so whilst I was there, I went to the local fishermen's school, and I did like a big colouring in book. I had 2 days to do a mural. So I came up with the idea of doing a very basic children's sort of book outline of a coral reef and some sharks. And then the next day, it was so lovely. All the children came in and started filling in all of the corals and the sharks. There was one kid that was painting a shark yellow, which I found quite amusing. It's like a Pikachu, like a Pikachu shark. And yeah, it was really amazing to see how art sort of brought the community together, and it brought so much joy and happiness to the school. And so I'm hoping next year in 2020 to go back and do some more mural projects with Maddie. But what she's doing is really amazing. Project Hayu is just, it's a project I fully support, and there needs to be more ecotourism sort of projects like that in the world.
Well, that kind of brings me on to my next question, which is, conservation is obviously hugely important to you. What practical and effective steps would you like to see being made, either by countries, politicians, or even individuals?
Yeah, well, I think it all starts just by an individual level. I think people think it's quite an overwhelming thing, trying to save the oceans, when actually every single day you can do something that makes a difference, whether that's bringing your own coffee cup to the local coffee shop, or you're bringing your own water bottle, not using plastic, trying to reduce your plastic, things like if you do eat meat, dairy and fish, to understand where that's coming from, because that industry is also polluting our waters. And just becoming a lot more aware, talking to people, having conversations with people, doing your own research, and also supporting projects and groups out there, much like Project Hayu. And on an individual level, we can do an awful lot, but on a sort of political level, that's really where the change will happen. But I think if we all come together and put pressure on companies, put pressure on the government, then change can happen. But it's a hard. We live in a slightly messed up world in terms of money does control a lot of things. But I think if we put pressure on companies, we've already seen that with the plastic wave. Like as a consumer, we do have a lot of power, and now because we are wanting more sustainable, ethical products, suddenly lots of companies have started doing all of this. So I think we can start off on an individual level, and then slowly go to protests, write into your local politicians, and do help support conservation groups. So there's a lot that we can do on an individual level.
And social media is a fantastic tool for spreading conservationism, but it can be hard to cut through that digital noise and be taken seriously. I just wondered how have you managed to do that?
Yeah, it's a hard one. There is so much noise out there, and there's so many funny dog videos and cat videos and lots of silly things, which is very entertaining, but also not productive at all. And I think for me, the one thing I've held on to is love. And I think if you love something, you'll do anything in your power to protect it. And for me, that's the ocean. I love it. And I have noticed over the years that posting something that's negative or something that's gory, it doesn't really grab a lot of people's attention. So, I think we've become quite desensitized from that. And so for me, I'm all about obviously talking about the issues, but talking about it in a loving and compassionate way, and showing the beauty of the ocean. The ocean is such an incredible place, and it's only 1%. Actually, I researched this the other day. 1% of people on planet Earth have actually been in the ocean and dove. Wow. So I'm talking. I mean, a lot of my friends are divers, but at the end of the day, not a lot of people have actually experienced the ocean and the magic. And so for me, I just want to try and show people that magic and make them fall in love and make them realize how important it is to their life. Saving the ocean is also saving yourself. So for me, I just try and be as sort of positive possible, and to also try and make people love the ocean as much as I do. It's hard, but I think more people care about the ocean now than they did even 2 years ago. Blue Planet 2 was a big thing. After that, something plastic was all over the news, which was great. And I think especially in the past year, I've noticed a bit more of a shift, and a lot more people are more aware, which is really great. I think we're going in a really good direction. I think we just need to maybe speed it up a little bit.
Well, I was going to say that younger people appear to be taking a lead in conservationism. I'm thinking of Greta Thunberg and people like that. Do you think that's true? There's still time to make a difference, isn't there?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, there's still so much worth fighting for, just like Sylvia Earle said. And yeah, it's actually really it's amazing to see, like, there's so many young people who are dedicating their lives to saving whatever it is, the rainforest, the ocean, whatever species it is. And it's very uplifting, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future. It isn't all doom and gloom, and a simple thing like I'm about to start a project about coral reefs with the Ocean Agency, and a lot of people say there's no point going to the Great Barrier Reef because it's all dead, and this is just negative media, and that isn't true. Bleached coral isn't dead; it's still alive. It just doesn't have the algae in it. The animal is still alive. It's just more susceptible to diseases and stuff. And I think it's just small things like that. Like a few years ago, there was a massive viral thing about corals dying, and it kind of just made my blood boil, because I'm like, no, this is not the media that we need to be positive. There is still so much there's still so much to fighting for. So yeah, I think the future is positive. I think we have to have a positive attitude, or else we're just gonna get depressed and nothing's gonna get done. I'm quite a positive person, so yeah.
And what's next for you personally?
Personally, 200 Sharks project. At the moment, I have how many left? So I have about 13 more sharks to paint that I have dove with this year. Sharks and rays. So I'm going to be busily painting all of that. Like I just mentioned, I can't share too much, but quite an exciting project called Glowing Gone, which is with the Ocean Agency, and it's about trying to change the stigma on coral reefs. So that's something that's in the works as well, and hopefully more diving. Maybe the Maldives next year. That's just popped up in the past week, so we shall see. But yeah, painting and diving for sure.
Well, we wish you all the best with that. Thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you.
And you can see more of Francesca's work in the latest issue of Dive. Dive magazine is printed quarterly on high quality paper and is packed with exciting features, the very best underwater photography, beautiful illustrations, all presented in wonderfully designed pages. It's also available digitally on tablets, smartphones and web devices in an app that looks great on any size screen. Included online is access to our archive, more than 80 magazines included in the digital subscription. To subscribe, go to buydive.com, that's BUYDIVE.com, and get your copy delivered direct to your door, tablet or mobile phone. So, back to the podcast. Remember, we want to hear from you too, so please get in contact with us on Twitter using the hashtag DivePodcast, or email us at podcast@dive.uk.com, and we'll do our best to include you in the show. Next up is diving journalist Louise Murray, who talks about her latest trip to the Philippines, during which she interviewed several dive guides about their lives in diving. Louise, you've written a story for Dive about some dive guides in the Philippines. Tell us, what's so fascinating about the place from a diving point of view?
place that I avoided, I mean, I learned to dive in 1988, and I have actively avoided the Philippines for many, many years because it had a terrible reputation for dynamite fishing, and so I spent many, many years diving around the country, around the countries around it, in Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, places like that. And I was only fortunate enough to go to the Philippines for the first time this year. And I could not believe what I've been missing out on. The diving there is fantastic. The macro life in particular is amazing. But, you know, there's also some fabulous reefs and large marine turtles in enormous aggregations at Apo Island. It's just a fabulous place to dive. So I'm rectifying my terrible remissness in not visiting the Philippines by going there 3 times this year.
Louise, tell us about some of the people you met and what made them so special.
Everyone was just so easy to talk to. They're just a very open culture, I think, and very open and friendly and have a cracking sense of humour. So it was very easy to talk to people. I mean, I'm a naturally nosy person, so I want to know what's going on in people's lives when I dive with them. But it was just a very rewarding experience that I thought I wanted to share with other divers and ask them to consider opening up conversations beyond the last nudie rank that you spotted and the last fish that you just saw. So, I mean, diving guides have fascinating lives, and it's worth opening up a conversation to open up the culture and to understand their lives from their own perspective. I think it's a rewarding thing to do as a diver.
And picking up on some of those people, which of the people you spoke with particularly impressed you?
Oh, I've always got a soft spot for the poor guides who have to dive with me for hours and hours during the day and then have to dive again at night. So I guess at the top of that list would be Jimson Bellum at Boseo Anilao in Batangas near Manila, and Simon Salak at Atmosphere Resort. And these guys are not used to diving all day and then doing 1.5, 2 hours at night in the evening. So yes, they have my enormous admiration for putting up with me.
And obviously, diving's hugely important to the local Filipino economy. Is that the case? I mean, these guys rely on diving for an income, don't they?
Yes, I mean, dive tourism is very important to the Philippines generally, but to individuals and in certain areas, particularly where muck diving has become prevalent. These are areas that weren't actually blessed with necessarily fantastic coral reefs, and muck diving has become a bit of a boom and a boon to these areas because they didn't have that pretty as a picture coral reef topography, but they're now able to attract very serious divers who are looking for the best in muck diving. And I dived Indonesia and Papua New Guinea for muck, but I have to say that the Philippines is way up there. Fantastic place.
I guess these people their lives have been transformed by diving. Would you say that's true for yourself as well?
Oh, absolutely. But I set out to transform mine. I guess the guys, mostly men, that I spoke to, their lives were also transformed. I mean, most of them came from, they wouldn't mind me saying, that poor fishing families. And this is the first generation that is able to escape the tyranny of an uncertainty of fishing for a living. And as such, they view diving and dive guiding, or Roy, who's a captain on a boat, they see this as a highly professional job, and take it very seriously indeed.
And for you personally, diving is obviously very important, and a lot of it occurs to me that a lot of diving journalism centres on natural history, and although I know you cover that very well, a lot of your stories are more varied, whether that's dealing with personalities or science or innovation, and particularly as well extreme environments. What is it that appeals to you about these subjects and such a range?
I guess it's a reflection of my personality, good or bad. I'm not actually interested in writing travel stories per se. I'm interested in a deeper story, something of more interest that I think is more appealing to readers. Where you, as a journalist, actively find a story and pursue it, as opposed to go there. I went for a dive. The hotel was very nice. I personally find that boring, and I think the range of subjects that I look to, I can kind of reflect my perhaps slightly butterfly personality, but what I do reflects what interests me. So I come up with the ideas generally and propose them to dive.
Right. So can you pick out some of the highlights? Because it might not be travel that totally interests you, but you've travelled a lot from pole to pole. What pick out some of the more interesting things that you've done?
Oh God, way up there is ice diving in the Arctic, which I've done many times. Working with cameramen to keep them safe, diving icebergs. In the Russian high Arctic, in the Franz Josef Islands. I guess I found Antarctica slightly disappointing because you don't have that sort of scary edge that a bear might come around the corner any minute.
Yeah,
the scariest thing are birds with those damn penguins. Yeah, my heart, in terms of extreme diving, my heart's absolutely in the Arctic, rather than because of the people, the Inuit people, and the presence of polar bears and very large, scary mammals like walrus.
Louise, what's next for you? Any more adventures planned for this year?
Yeah, I'm just a couple of days ago confirmed a job with the Italian Navy Special Forces, these are the explosive ordnance divers who operate out of northern Italy but cover the whole country, and they're still disposing of explosives and bombs from the Second World War. Northern Italy is where I'll be going to do that. We had hoped to do it in Sicily on exercises with them, but sadly that didn't work out, so I'll be diving with them near their base in northern Italy. So shortly after that, I'm back to the Philippines.
Okay.
To do a job on with scientists on thresher sharks. I have about 3 stories I have to do there.
Okay.
And then I come back from that in October, and in the middle of November I'm going free diving in Mexico with marlin and bait balls off the coast of Baja California, and doing some other diving with sea lions. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's my plan to the end of the year.
If you had one dive left, what would it be?
I want to go the night drift diving with plankton. I'm desperate to do that, so I'm hoping to persuade someone in the Philippines to take me doing that this trip.
Thanks, Louise. And you can read Louise's article on the Philippines in the latest issue of Dive, which you can buy in stores and online at buydive.com. And please check out the Dive website at divemagazine.co.uk. So that's all we have time for. Thanks for listening. Happy diving, be safe, and get wet.